I just sent a text, sorry.
Yeah.
Dr. Sorry.
Let's take that one.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so Josh wasn't sure he could join, and I see the rest of us, so I'm going to get started. So first, Cheryl, can you make your announcement?
I mean, I'm recording the meeting as I am allowed to by law. I'm not sure if I need to announce it to you. The law just says I need to inform the chair, so I already informed you.
Okay, I guess I will work on it. Okay, so Ms. Mueller had told me previously that she intends to record this meeting. She's going to do that with her phone off her computer. And I'm going to go around and formally ask everyone for their permission, understanding that this is allowed under open meeting law. So Dr. Holman,
Yes.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Yes.
Ms. Gittleson,
Yes.
Mr. Carden,
Yes.
Ms. Bliss.
Yes.
I don't know who Robert's iPhone is.
Oh, that's Rob Spiegel.
Oh, okay. Got it. Rob, I'm assuming by your continued participation that you agree. And give me a sec. Okay, I'm just putting a note in the chat too, in case anyone comes.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Can I enable chat? I don't see that ability.
It's on for me, Melissa. Here, go try this.
No, it's disabled.
Yeah,
Where I see it, it's disabled.
there, now I can see it. Okay.
Percy, I think I think if people come in, they don't see the chat from before they were here. So I'm not sure that
Oh, so you don't think this is
solves
helpful?
that if that's what you're concerned about.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna put.
I don't know specifically about, like, I just know that's been my experience with other Zoom meetings, is that when you join, you don't see what's
Okay.
been there in the
Well,
past.
I will repaste it if I need to, but there. Okay, so that's the best I can do in terms of notifying people. Okay. So sorry, I have to write all this stuff down. Okay. So update on FY25 end of year report. So Chris, I think Liz sent you what we had gotten before.
Yes, and I believe within the agenda, you should be able to pull up the PDF.
Okay,
So we performed
sorry,
an
I haven't.
updated.
Okay,
No, it's fine.
awesome. Okay,
Yep, so
so
I
we have,
performed an updated memo with the finance team. So this is a report on the FY25 end of year report and spending analysis.
mhm,
The memo follows a similar structure to the past, so it's a high level overview
mhm,
of kind of what's encompassed on the end of year report. So it totals up by DESI certain function codes and spending categories based on school committee appropriation, based on contributions from a town or a city, towards the school department. So for example, the town covers, the health insurance, debt service on school-related buildings. So that's broken out in a separate table. We also reported just grants activity within last fiscal year, again, compared against prior years, and then finally against special revenue or revolving accounts as well. So there's 4 different charts on here. Again, this follows a similar fashion in the past. I believe the last time this was done was 2 fiscal years ago. But I believe the intention is obviously
Might have been 3.
3 years ago. But I believe with this is support that's going to go into the agenda for tomorrow as part of your materials. And then I believe Kirsty, you had said you might forward this along to FinCom as a resource. And I'll obviously keep this on my docket to perform in subsequent years.
Awesome. Does anyone have any comments or questions about this? Sorry, I'm trying to grab things. Okay. Anyone wave your hand again? Okay, I'm seeing none. Thank you very much, Chris. This is very helpful. And we will, so I'm sorry, it's been posted to tomorrow's tomorrow's meeting also, or?
It's in my update right now. I was just going to reference it as part of my update. And if people have questions for Chris, they can address it to him, he can answer any. If we'd like it as a separate agenda item, I could do it that way too, but.
It doesn't need to be, this is more being provided for people's information.
Yeah.
So it could go as a bullet under budget, or it can just go in correspondence.
Okay.
But if you want it in your update, if it's referring to something, if it's something you're gonna talk about, that's fine too.
I was gonna inform everybody that it was done and certified and it has been for about a month and
Right.
and give people a chance to ask questions if they have any, so.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Yeah, so whatever you want to do, that's fine. So no questions. So moving on, update on FY26.
The only update I'd have on 26, just speaking, kind of following up on my update last time. So I'm working with the team right now to review all the non-personnel lines, as I'd stated, just to kind of review the budget lines, make sure we're appropriately budgeted within certain categories and ensure we're charging to the appropriate lines. Part of that is obviously just to clean up 26 for projection's sake, but also just as a foundation of starting our 27 discussions as well, just trying to make sure that all of our lines are cleaned up as much as possible. And then I'm also having a follow-up review with SPED just to ensure that we're properly allocating expenses to circuit breaker and then setting up encumbrances. So going forward, those are charged there. So that'll be cleaned up shortly. And circuit breaker related expenses for this year will be reflected as off of our operating update during my next update for the board.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are we gonna encumber longevity?
So right now, the encumbrance is based just on base pays, but I did talk with Phyllis and Tam that the next part of the test is any of the contractual things. Like
Contractual
longevity,
stipends, longevity.
Yeah, right now, Munis is just pulling through pay code 100. And then I think a projection of the part-time 101 code based on hours per
Right.
period and times how many periods we have left. So they know the next layer of the testing is they need to pull through those other pay codes such as longevity.
Yeah.
So that should be part of the encumbrance going forward. It's just not right now.
Just a kind of in the weeds logistical
Mhm.
question I have about that is whether it creates hangups that make it harder for you to run a projection quickly if unencumbering that once it's paid is tedious because there's so many different units. Is it easier to do it as an encumbrance,
Mhm.
as a salary encumbrance, or is it easier to just build it into the projection?
Mhm.
But because it's a no number,
Yeah,
if it's not tedious to unencumber once
Yeah.
it's paid, then it'd be nice to have it in the encumbrance. But if it is,
Yeah.
then maybe it's not worth it. And I don't know if the committee has
yeah.
preference, but I know it was brought up after the last meeting, so.
It's a good question. To be honest, I'm gonna have to look into it because longevity is a pay code on someone's job salary. But I don't know if longevity pulls through to payroll as part of pulling through that pay code,
I don't know.
and if it reduces pay from 1 to 0. or if it's just like a drop salary, but we still manually add
Yeah.
longevity each pay. So I'll have to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think no matter what we do, it's important not to have that number seen as a positive on our bottom
Yeah.
line, because it's not. We're going to have to pay that out. But and encumbering is the easiest way I know to do that. But I understand what you're saying, that if you can't be pulling it out. So, okay. Any other updates on FY26? Anyone have any questions about FY26? Seeing none. Okay, planning for FY27. So I've got form planning update. Laura, you and I need to be talking over the next few days. So I will talk to you after, I'll text with you after the meeting.
Sure.
And find out when, and we will figure things out, and then run things by Liz. And so we have a location, and do we need any additional audiovisual support or anything? We're set. Okay.
Well, we're all set, and we almost have a flyer. Liz Diggins had a couple edits to send to comms, but it's almost done, and we'll get that out to everybody and post it on socials and all that.
Great.
Okay, anything else about this? No, okay. So one thing I was thinking about, Liz, in terms of what you and I had discussed this morning, we do need to have a good sense of what cuts are likely to be by the January 10th forum. So
Yeah,
kind of
that's
hard deadline.
I mean, we might not have all the options fully costed out, but we should know what the list is by then, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, and actually it should be before, we shouldn't be presenting stuff that school committee hasn't seen
Right.
at that
You'll
forum.
have a
It needs
list
to
on
be whatever
December.
I haven't checked what our meeting is, so that's our.
So you're talking about cuts were we not to pass an
Yeah.
override?
Yeah, the January 10th forum is going to be talking about, this is what happens if no override. And yeah, okay.
You guys will have a list on December 18th.
Okay.
It may not have, it'll be high level. It may not have the exact cost of every single option, but it will have the options under consideration and deliberation so that you all can give us priorities from something. If there are things that people really want to see on that list, actually would not recommend you name them now, but I would love it if you could call me to make sure that those things are in my ear.
Okay. Any comments, questions on this? Okay, seeing none, okay, so there's. Okay, so the Unit A turnover analysis is under FY27.
Yeah,
Um,
it meant it. She put it in both that and long range. It should be under
Okay.
the long range one.
Okay, that's fine. It's like, yay, we get many. Okay, so I stuck it under long range. So okay, it sounds like we don't have anything else for FY27 at this point. So moving on to long range plan. Do we want to discuss anything about the enrollment study Is there anything that we want? I know it's not really on your radar. I've been putting it on there and I haven't really addressed it. I'm not sure if we're at a I'm going to flag this as something that we need to talk about at our next budget meeting so that we've actually reviewed the report and have discussed it before we're off talking about it at long range plan. I know like Glenn has looked at it and stuff, but I haven't had a chance yet. And
Well, the one I've sent you is the one without GIS in it.
oh, okay. I thought that
It doesn't
so
have GIS in it yet.
we haven't got the GIS yet.
Nope.
Okay, so
Glenn had asked me to do some analysis that updates our model,
mhm,
and I have not gotten around to that yet. But I
okay.
intended to do that too. So
Okay, so
Yeah, so just I did do that and both models, I mean, they're basic, as I said last time, they're basically the same model. They use slightly different retention rates, but they're very, very close. So both models show a decline, and the question is whether, as we talk about the long range plan, whether we utilize that or not.
okay, but we
Utilize
haven't
it.
gotten,
I'm sorry, the decline in enrollment as we talk about that.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
so, but we haven't actually gotten the final report that uses the GIS data in case that changes things at all. So I think,
Yeah,
I
I think the GIS data will be more effective for longer term, but in
mhm.
the short term, when we know how many people were born, it's not going to be changed by the GIS data.
No,
You
I
know,
know, but that's my concern is that I think we're seeing a lot of our growth from people moving into town. Or at least that's what happened over the past. And
yeah, the model doesn't really show that. The data doesn't
right.
really show that.
What you mean in the past?
So we've had a historical increase in the retention rate from birth to K, but
Mm-hmm.
that's leveled off. So it
Right.
used to be around, the low 80s, 80, 85, and now it's 90.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's where, um, uh, so for the kindergarten entry level, I'm pretty certain that it's still driven by births. The year-to-year number varies because we're using calendar year and that's
Right.
not school year. So that's a little messy, but the overall trend for kindergarten is going to be relatively stable to what it has been the last few years for between 4 and 450. The
Mm-hmm.
move-ins have been coming in the upper levels, but those are built into the formula, right? So we're seeing retention rates of greater than one at, greater than 100% at the high school level, for example, but that's already baked in to the formula. So I don't need to wait for more data. I'm confident that we're going to see a decline in students. And that's one thing that we could use in approaching the long range plan, but I'm not set on that. I'm open to other alternatives, other discussion.
I think, can I weigh in on this person? I think what would make the most sense to me is if you hit 25 fewer kindergartners in a year. That means you probably are having a reduction of sections somewhere. If they're all spread out across the system, then maybe not. But there's a cost to a section that's relatively easy to define. And I wonder if there's not a way to have an agreement where if the reduction of students is equal to some number section, or that that amount would be factored into the equation and reduced from the base. Because reasonably, like, we wouldn't be adding that section because there's not a section to add there. And that's gonna trickle through as that group of kids moves through the system. It's not quite that clean because obviously they're all over town. But the
Yeah,
cumulative effect of that is that we have fewer sections of kindergarten. And then fewer.
I'm kind of wondering that we're talking 3-year promise, and if we're not projecting like 100 less, more than 100 students decrease within that 3-year period, is it worth considering, especially if we're trying to come up with a really tight number to do as increases? You know, the next time we do this, we could look at the total, what the average enrollment has been, and if it's decreased consistently, then, you know, maybe we go down, but did I confuse everyone?
No, just look at it right now.
So I think it's something to think about. It's
He hasn't done the thing.
my,
Maybe there are some quotes for stuff. But...
okay. Rob, your phone is,
Rob.
you're muted.
Okay.
Thanks. My concern is whether our increases are at all out of proportion to what the state is seeing and what we're seeing in terms of births. And I understand Len says no, and I just need to look at the data myself.
When you say increase it, I thought what increase it? I thought Len was saying we're projecting decreases.
Did I say increases? I
You
meant
did.
if our student population decreases by like.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, sorry, I must have misspoke. Okay, so anything more on this? Not seeing it. Okay, so then we have financial modeling. Okay, so Liz, you have some stuff to share?
Yeah. All right. Sharing the screen real quick.
Okay.
So now I'm going to try to explain this way that it makes some sense, folks here. One of the things I've been trying to figure out is what our turnover and or retirement savings might look like over the next few years. And to calculate those dollars using the data we have, which due to some of the challenges we had with position control isn't position to position to position. So we're needing to make some assumptions. If I look back at starting salary, and I want to thank Rob for helping pull all this data out for me. If we look at starting salary over the last many years of any employees who are currently below step 12. So this is current employees in the district who are below step 12 right now. What was their starting salary? And the reason why it's everybody below step 12 is because if they are at step 12, I actually just thought of a way that I could do this, so I could update this potentially. But if they're at step 12, it's harder to calculate backwards because they might have been at step 12 for 1 year. They might have been at step 12 for 10 years. So I know that if they're at step 11, they were probably at step 10 last year, step 9 before that, step 8 before that. So for everybody below step 12, this is their approximate starting salary normed for FY26. So if they started today on that same step, this is what they would make. Everybody who's currently here, who's currently below step 12. That gave me an average starting salary in FY26 dollars using past data. And it tracks, like that's about what we budget generally for new hires. Then I wanted to understand what our retirement savings and our retirement numbers have been in the past. It doesn't look like we collected or reported or put in the system data on this very reliably until relatively recently. And we now have a system where all of anybody who leaves and why they leave gets recorded in the system and entered in the system pretty consistently. So I have the most faith in our numbers between 2023 and 2025, and a little less in 21, 22, but we do have good, like, solid data in those 2 years. And then you go back any further than that, and it looks like only one person retired each year, and I just don't believe it. So I think we weren't reporting it, entering it into the system at that time. With that, what we have in the system right now tells us that we had about 434 retirees over the past several years, and that in Unit A. And that tracks with my memory of our teacher appreciation event at the end of each year, where we had about that many. And then in 2025, last year, we did have a lot more. And so that's the total number of employees who retired in each of those years. Their final salary in 26 numbers. So that puts them up against this year's grid. What would their salary be if they retired today? And then using this number for their starting salary, if we replace at that starting salary, this is what the replacement cost is, assuming we backfill all of the retirements. And so then this is the turnover savings, assuming we backfill all of the retirements, which we don't always. And then I did an average over the 5 years. Then I wanted to look at all the other people who leave. What's our total turnover savings generally in a year, set even on FY26? And part of why I set everything to $26 was to account for inflation, but also because the data that we have that is decent is this year's data. It's very difficult to go back to old salary grids and try to map this in, and then also account for inflation. So it was easy. It was much easier to do this, setting everything to $26. But I also think it makes for a more consistent number. So this isn't the actual savings each year. It's what the savings would be if the same number of people were to retire this year or resign or something else. So this gives you resignations, retirements, and other is just like terminations, non-renewals. There are few enough of them that I didn't want to put them in here, so I put them together. And so that tells us that over the past few years, we've had, over the past like 2-3 years, we've had more savings with turnover. I attribute some of that to the fact that I've been a little bit stricter about hiring people in at the top of the scale. I've asked administrators not to do that. And then during FY21 and 22, we were kind of desperate for roles, particularly in special education. So it's a little more lenient about that. And we've gotten a little bit tougher on that. We've also had a little bit more turnover, perhaps, and we had more retirements last year. So our 5-year retirement savings in this year's dollars, with all of those assumptions, was about 775. Our 3-year was about $1 million. Then Rob went and looked at all of our current Unit A staff. But all of this is only for Unit A, by the way. When it looked at all of our Unit A staff currently and who might be eligible for retirement over the next 5 years based on age and years of service. And the average over 5 years is about 13.8 per year. And that equates to a possible savings per year if all of them were to retire. Actually, no, not if all of them. If 75% of them were to retire each year, of about 1.7 million. So I wasn't sure before we did this whether it was safe to say that we're going to see a lot of retirements in the next several years. I feel like it is fairly safe to say that we have a lot of people who could retire in the next 5 years, and that we could realize some pretty significant savings from those retirements, even assuming that we backfill all of them, and we may not need to. So some of the questions, this generated many, many questions for me, but a few of them that I think are worth considering or talking about is whether we should use possible turnover retirement savings in our budget planning. We have not done that in the past. Because it feels a little risky. You never really know what people are going to do. And that turnover savings can provide the buffer when there's an unexpected and unanticipated cost. So if you include it in your budget planning, you're planning even tighter, and we've planned pretty tight the last few years. Whether we want to develop a retirement incentive that will maybe accelerate or ensure some of these savings, I think we would have to make sure that whatever we were to do would be actually financially beneficial enough to the individual to be compelling, and to us to have an impact and actually help us realize some of the savings. But obviously would cut into that savings bottom line. And then the extent to which it's possible that some of these folks don't retire in the next 5 years. We have a lot of people who stick around past their eligible retirement time, because Arlington's awesome and a great place to work. And then what the potential impact is of the fact, if we were to do a retirement incentive and we were to accelerate this, that then you rehire people into the middle of the grid and they increase at a higher rate. So you potentially create a situation, if we don't revise the grid and smooth it out, where the folks who are only increasing by the COLA are now folks who are increasing by COLA and STEP, and you have more of them. So do we really want to accelerate it if the folks who stick around are only increasing by whatever we set the COLA at? All right, I think that's all I have for right now. That was a lot.
Okay. Can you clarify for me when you say the possible? Okay, so it says the average possible savings per year if 75% actually retire. Are you saying so 75% of roughly of the 13.8?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm confused because in 25, 9 people retired, but the only turnover savings was 279. So I don't understand why that number, your number here is so much bigger.
Hold on. That number seemed weird to me. Hold on. It's the average. I don't know. So let me think for a moment. I did that part last, so it's freshest.
I believe it was. Good morning. So they could retire 69 number,
Yeah,
can be 50. Is that 69 people over the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Retire.
yeah.
So we think out of those, that only 13.8 over the next 5 years.
Well, it's
I think the problem is that your average, that number, that the 165 something, that's for 4.8 people,
Mhm.
right? And you're multiplying it by person. Or if I understand that correctly,
You're right.
right? So it's not
Yeah. You're right. Hold on. I need a per person number.
yeah.
Maybe.
That's way better. Yeah.
Okay.
We just got the same number. All right. Chris and I got the same number. That's better.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That makes way more sense. So
I mean, I like your other number, but
yeah, that would be lovely, but it doesn't look realistic. So that's way.
okay, so that is just retirement. That
just
is
retirement.
not including the normal turnover that we see, which is, and what's the So the resignation turnover has been, can you do what the resignation turnover has
Just with resignations?
person? Yeah, just the well, actually anything that's not retirement.
All right, give me a sec.
And you can just do another laying out the side and divide by. Okay.
Okay. 600,000 per person, you mean?
Yeah, per person. Okay.
14,500.
Okay. So, I mean, the 600 is useful too, but that's okay. So what we're seeing then over um so we're seeing somewhere between 900, I mean, that we can anticipate somewhere between 900 and $1 million in combined everyone leaving, retirement and resignation and other. Right.
Probably. If, and what I don't know and haven't done is what percent of people who have been eligible, and I don't even, this is a bit of a exercise, like how many of the people who were eligible to retire in the last many years actually did. And I'm not sure that that is arrivable at in a way that I would trust.
So when you chose 75%, that was sort of
I
a,
pulled that out of that hat. I
Okay.
like, we could say 50%.
Well, but also it's not just against the 13.8, right? Because all the people who didn't retire the year before, they're,
they roll over.
yeah, so I mean, it's hard to make a guesstimate. The point is, this gives us some idea. I mean, I had talked to Liz about this because I was concerned that if you look at the number of employees that we have at different steps and lanes, it's clear that we have a lot of people at step 12, and I assumed that a number of them were nearing retirement, and that you can't just look at the year-to-year change in the as people advance on the grids, because we're not doing, the next few years are not going to be typical. We're going to have more retirements than we usually do, and that is going to see incur some savings, and that I wanted us to have some sense of what those were going to be. So this is very helpful, Liz. Thank you.
I wanted to
When-
make sure it was true that in fact, more people were going to retire, and it looks like, in fact, more people are going to retire probably. So that will result in some savings. The next exercise that I had hoped to do before this meeting, but haven't quite gotten to yet, and I also have an update from Jim Pugh, was to figure out, given these savings, what's the growth on salaries for FY 27, given the retirements that we know already. And given the some adjustments that we know we're planning on making, what's the impact on increase in the salaries for next year? And this is just like making a few things a little more efficient and applying some more consistent ratios for staffing, and like looking at kindergarten sections and making a plan for that. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but the question that I'm trying to answer is, how low can we reasonably project a salary increase at, percentage wise, that is not a significant impact on services that families will notice and feel? And how close can I get that to 4%? So that we can go back to long range plan. So I was hoping to play with that a little bit more with Chris and Tam over the next couple of days, over the next day, so that we can get some analysis back on that. The town manager did say that they were working on some adjustments to revenue assumptions, and they put about 1.5 or so million back into the plan with those adjustments, which under our current assumptions, so holding all of our current assumptions with the sped gen ed breakout in the plan, that got override number down to 17.5 million, which is positive progress. And so with that in mind, he knows that should we be able to make some adjustments to the formula, even if it's temporary, as Christy and I had talked about, because these retirements happen and then we have people in the middle of the grid and those salaries keep going up at an increased rate. So we only realize these savings for as long as these retirements are flowing through at the rate that they might be in the next couple of years. Can we temporarily agree to a lower percent increase each year? This is part of the question I was trying to answer next, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
So what I was discussing with Liz is that I think if we're going in proposing a lower number, in part based on increased retirements, which are out of norm for the next few years, that we need to be very clear that that's what we're doing, that because we can accept, say, 442 something for the next few years, that doesn't mean that number will work forever. Not because we're doing anything wrong, just because we're using a quirk of the current working staff and expectations for what their plans will be. And then we'll go back to a normal year.
So what's the,
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
no, is the ask from the town is 4? Is that what they're asking? Or
I think
is
their
there a number?
ask is what is the lowest that is not a very visible cut to services.
So I don't think they did kind of propose a number in their sandbox that they didn't really share, which was for everything except out of district and 5 on out of district, and the overall was around 4.07 or something when I calculated it out. So Len, what were you going to say?
Oh, it just, I mean, of course, we should reiterate that, any concession is temporary. We always reserve the right to readjust at the next planning situation. but I would argue that these numbers that we're seeing now is the norm. We have a very young staff, actually, not a very old staff, because of all the hiring we've done, because of all the enrollment increase. So I think if you went back to, 10 years ago, the percent at the step 12 would actually be even higher because I think that's normal. That's where people are supposed to be at step 12. So, Rob, I don't know if you have any history on that. It's not that important. I just think I don't think we should say, it's based on our current data, but I don't know that it's necessarily an exception to what I think the last few years has been the exception.
Okay, I didn't think about that. I
Um,
haven't got numbers for that other.
Our current step is 9. Our current average step for everybody who's not about to retire or not at step 12 is 9, which surprised me a little bit. It's fairly high. The last step I can probably do average age. Nope.
Anyway, it's not that important. We should move on.
Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of what we're going to bring to Friday's meeting, I'm assuming I should bring the I should have the graphs ready that I presented last time about. I've improved them, but that show the average spending per pupil versus the town manager 12. And what do we want to, are we proposing a number and or a method? Are we proposing do what they're suggesting with the in-district and out-of-district split? Or are we proposing all-in number? And do we have a number that we're ready to propose? Or, and what do we need to bring, if anything, as supporting documentation for that?
And that's the key. That's the key question. Um, I thought, Liz, that you were further along in your analysis and were heading towards. You said at one point you were comfortable with 4, so I don't know where you are now.
So I think I think we can do 4% in 27. I worry about that is strict tuition. I think in the long term, I like one bucket better. But so one of the other analyses we've done, we didn't share it here, but Chris and I looked at per pupil out of district cost increase. What was it? 5 point, close to 6%, 5.8% over the last 3 years. Is that the last 3 years? Or is that over
That's over the last 9, 10 years.
over the last 9 or 10 years? So that makes me nervous because that's not 4%. And I think if we are in one bucket, I'd feel much better about 4.5. If we break it out, then, and it's 4 for Jen, I'd prefer 6 or 5.5 for out of district. And then we do what Kirsty had analyzed last time we met, that showed that stabilization. Essentially, if we don't spend that, we put it into sped reserve. Now, we could do that as one bucket and then just do that exercise that Kirsty had outlined ourselves within our allocation. But I'm worried about that allocation then being only 4 because of the per pupil spend going up by 5.8 over the last 10 years.
Right.
Uh,
That's, I think we have to, if we're, sorry, if we're proposing one bucket, we need to internally calculate what we think that one bucket should be. And I would propose that we have in district at 4, if that's what you're calculating, you think the AEA grid can handle. And then you have out of district, and we know how much we're paying now, and we now have a estimate for what that number is. And you can come up with an overall number for, you can come up with an overall increase. My guess is it's somewhere around 4142. And but that's very calculable. So Chris, I didn't catch, what was the out of district, looking at same people's going, what was it?
Yeah, so going back to FY 18, it's
Mhm.
been 5.8%.
Okay, what if you look at just more recent numbers?
like the last 3 or 4 years.
So going back to 22 is 5.9. FY 24 was the year that we had the most significant increase. So if I only capture, say, since 23, it's actually 8.5.
8.5 since 23.
Yeah, because 22 went down by 4% per kiddo. That's probably based on placements and such.
Mhm.
But this is supposed to be
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's per kiddo.
person over person, I mean, same person year over year, so the placement shouldn't make, I mean, unless we're doing, well, when did we do weird, FY 21 is when we would have done changes in placements potentially
Hmm.
because of COVID.
Yeah, that year went up 18%.
That year went up 18%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense.
So, and you said that if you do FY 23 to now, it's what?
8.5.
And it's my recollection that these things tend to be, it goes along and then they do a big jump and then it goes along and do a big jump. So
How do we have a negative percentage in any year? The amount per pupil should always be
You could have
higher.
significant kids that were private or even breast kids like age out, or maybe kids went from private to flag.
But the amount we spend, like that would be captured in the enrollment. There's fewer kids.
So that year you're looking at, we apparently went from 84 to 69. It would drop from 7.6 spend to 6. So our total spend went down as the number of kids went down, but
The total spend would go down, but the per
Mhm.
pupil amount we actually spend, like they didn't charge us less in tuition.
we're talking about averages then.
So particularly with residential, if you have some of those drop off, the average could drop.
right. And if you've
Oh,
got
I
people,
see.
if you've got people aging out
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they're 22, they've been in pretty intense programs probably.
Okay. It's just that that's how broad the range is of the different tuitions.
Yeah.
And so it drops out, you see, okay, got it.
So do you
What do you think?
Well, the 5.8 number I'm referencing is based on whatever 9-year trailing edge. If you go down, my second to last row is the OSD inflation rate. I think some of that's impacted by the OSD rate only being in the 1s or 2%, but FY 24 is when they did the large 14% adjustment, and then the year since it's been 4.69. We're at 3.6 now. We just got guidance that it's 3% next year. So, I mean, I know we're looking at 9-10 year trends, but maybe it's more appropriate to look isolated here just in the last couple of years.
No, but the thing is, how often my recollection is every so often they do these really big increases, and I just don't know how often.
I mean,
Because-
there was that one 14% increase, but I don't think that was a pattern. That was just, they sort of
Yeah.
recognized COVID costs, blah, blah, blah. But it was sort of an exception.
But I thought there's been years when it's hit 8, where before it's been like 5.
It bounces around, but nothing like 14.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we don't want to entirely discard the big jump if there's going to be other, they're not doing a steady rate all the time. They're doing up and then up and then up and then more. And that we're trying to capture that. But so are we okay, so we got two things. Well, first, it's almost 10:30. Does anyone have a hard stop at 10:30, or I'm sorry, I'm looking at my clock. It is 12:30 there. Does anyone have a hard stop at 12:30? Or can we keep going? Okay, I'm not seeing a hard stop. So,
It's like
sorry, I'm like, don't ignore the reaction thing. That's just, I don't, whatever, go away. There. I'm counting and my computer thinks I'm reacting. So the things we have to figure out are 1 bucket or 2, and rates for the proposed things. And one thing, I had a discussion with Liz that she has different feelings about rates if it's 1 bucket or 2, because she feels there's more risk. And so wants higher rates for, I think, 1 bucket. I personally feel like the two that we should just be, the math should be the same, whether it's 1 bucket or 2. So that's kind of another question.
I mean, I did the analysis the chair asked me to do, so sorry I didn't do what
No.
thought I was going to. But I have some confidence we could work with a 4% bottom line for next year. It's my hesitation comes mostly from the worry that gets stuck. That it doesn't move, that it can't then go up. Like, it's the once something's cut, it doesn't come back phenomenon that concerns me. And the fact that if you look at the average for out of district tuition since FY 23 per pupil, it's 8.5%.
So when you're saying 4% bottom line, you're like, if we had 1 bucket.
Yeah.
So do you have, like, if the volatility is in the out of district, or the volatility that we have a lot less control over is in the out of district, if we did 4 for in district, is there a number, over 4 that makes sense or feels comfortable for an out of district bucket.
What had you calculated it on last time we met, Kirsty, you had shared?
Yeah, I'm just doing, I'm changing the number.
I mean, conceptually,
Oh.
the 2 buckets make sense to me. I don't like, I understand that that's like different than in reality of what you're actually doing, but as a concept, it makes sense to me to have 2 buckets.
Okay, so I've got, let me get to Zoom. Okay, I'm gonna share my, Liz, can you stop sharing sharing your screen? I'm gonna, or whoever's sharing their screen, can you stop it? Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. Whoops. Share. Okay, I think this is the right one. Okay, so this is the spreadsheets I presented on the 12th. And this part is me using their sandboxy model that they have never actually proposed, but me trying to work it out. And this is starting with FY26 and moving forward. And it's got in district in one lump and out of district, including transportation, in another lump. And here, so I've got 4% for in district, and then I put in 6%, and I can change that number, but I put in 6. And so what that means is for one bucket, we're seeing a 4.14% increase year over year over year with those 2 numbers. So what I'm saying is to alleviate your concerns about the out of district, I think we shouldn't accept 4. We need to accept something higher. These numbers, if you think out of district's going to increase at a 6% rate, then you want to accept 4.14. If you think it's going to be, I mean, I can run other numbers, but that's what the math works out to. And that's why I'm saying I don't see how there's a big difference between one bucket and 2. You just have to make sure that the maths, right?
Yep. Okay,
So
in that case, having not built the FY27 budget yet, like I would be okay with 415 or 42.
okay.
415, and what did you say? 42?
Or 42.
Okay.
My argument for 42 would be that it's been not 6, but 8.5 over the last 3 years. And part of the calculus on this too is that we had a lot of kids over a very slow but consistent period of time age out of district placements, and we've stabilized. And so my fear is that our real inflation rate per pupil is that 8.5%, not 6%.
So what Len was saying is that the FY24 increase was an anomaly.
Yep.
That's sort of on back
That's right.
things. So I just added 8%.
Right,
So
Yeah,
so
but
if we,
He's
sorry.
right.
there's 2 numbers. There's the per pupil cost, which is what we've been talking about, and there's the number of pupils, which we haven't talked about, right?
Yeah.
Which Liz just mentioned. So we don't, I don't think we have a clear sense without more analysis of where that number is headed. So that's sort of an unknown.
Yeah. And looking at other districts, they seem to be seeing more pupils going out of district. And that would be a reason to be concerned. And yeah, this does not address any increase in enrollment. This is assuming we have kind of the same enrollment going. I mean, we're adding people and subtracting them at the same time. but it's not including any additional people on that. So when I use 8%, and 8% is the out of district and 4 for the in district, then we're at 4.27 or 4.28. Or for, this is not. So,
And I think, like, to Len's point, no, we don't know what's coming. But we do know that in the last couple of years at Menotomy, we've had more intensive needs, which is driving some of the increase in the per pupil costs back up. That 723 and 25, 9.42 and 26 is indicative of the fact that when we have sent some folks out, it's been at an increased cost per student. And we've had some more significant needs. Now, we haven't like shot up. We've gone from 61 in 23 to 55 students in 24 to 59 over the past 2 years. We had 87 in FY17 and FY18. And we had 86 in FY19. So the programming we've built in district has enabled us to keep more students in district. Some of the students we're sending out are more intensive, which makes sense because we're holding more students in district. So their per pupil tuition is higher. I think that the number of kids going out probably stabilizes right around where we are now, because we don't have the aging out phenomenon going on at this point anymore, where we have like a huge group that ages out all at once. And it's like if you're hearing me hesitate because predicting the future is hard.
right.
Not for any other reason, really. I would feel more comfortable with 425, given the unknowns. I'd be okay with 415, given the math.
I'm concerned that, like I said, that it looks like other districts have been very stable and are now seeing a creep in out of district enrollment, and that makes me worry that they're, for whatever reason, a little bit ahead of us, but that we may well see that too, and that it's like you said, there's increased needs coming, but I don't know for sure. Right, I'm just looking at numbers and stuff. Let me stop sharing my screen. So something I'm gonna do. All right, I get all messed up with this. Ah, the button is not where. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having a terrible time here. Okay. Okay, sorry. So I mean, we can go in and propose both, say we would be content with either model. If we're doing that, my preference would be that the math is the same. Otherwise, they're going to pick the one that's the lowest. So we can go in and present it's either one bucket at 4.25 or two buckets at 4 and like 7.9. And that we can work out what the exact math would be. Or we can just pick one model that we like and present that.
Just add a variable to this very complicated process. The capital committee emailed me recently pushing back on our one-to-one devices for grades 3 through 8. They've argued for years, and I understand the argument, that devices that we provide to staff and that we provide to kids are operational costs at this point because they're necessary curricular costs, like a textbook would be. And staff need them to do their work, so they shouldn't be on capital. I've argued that there's not an allocation for that in the school's budget. They emailed recently and had programmatic suggestions that would be a significant reduction of service. Basically, they said, we should be BYOD in grades 3 to 8. I disagree for a whole host of reasons. I do think we should have the one-to-one devices. I don't necessarily think they should be going home in grades 3 through 6, but like that's a whole different can of worms. I have said to the town manager that if we were to operationalize the devices in our budget, which we started work to do in FY26, if you recall, that's going to take some time. It can't be one like all at once because it's about a $550,000 allocation. The town manager understands that and agrees with me and would probably work with us if we can get a little closer to 4 to figure out how to do a reallocation somehow or a slow operationalization of devices with capital committee. I don't know how that factors for folks. I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, but it was part of the conversation I had with him when we shared this with me. It does mean us absorbing about $550K of devices over the next several years into the budget, which
Is that per
takes
year or total?
Huh?
Is that per year or total?
per year.
per year.
Okay.
Now, I think we're going to get that number down because if we don't have devices go home in grades 3 to 6, and we only have them go home in 7 and 8, and we continue to do BYOD at the high school, and we don't do one-to-one iPads at K to 2, which we're going to try to move away from. We're going to try to do some class sets that teachers can share in like handles of 5 or so. Then we'll probably bring that cost down. If we have fewer teachers, that will bring the cost of the one-to-one teaching devices down. But right now, the ask for capital every year is about $550 in one-to-one devices.
Is it not a district-wide? My experience is that devices are not coming home in the elementary school.
They don't generally in 3 to 5.
Okay.
And we're trying to move that also to 6. But then we got to store them somewhere, and we have to have carts, and we have to shift how we're doing homework, send homes to. But generally in 3 to 5, they only go home if they're needed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think I've had a kid bring one home in several years. At one year, there was like a choice we were given.
Yeah. It's if you don't have anything at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would be clear to the town manager that that's a separate thing, a separate conversation. If he wants to start bringing that into the plan, then that's his prerogative. I think you go back to capital and say, look, if this override passes, you're getting $750,000 more dollars per year. We're not making, changes. Talk to the town manager if you want to switch that money, but it would come out of your capital budget and go to, from our perspective, it has to move from capital to the school budget somehow. It doesn't
That's
help them.
precisely
It's
what I
not going to
said.
help
And
them.
precisely, yes.
Not going to help them find more money. And I guess Chris is the one who sits on that committee for us, but we have to be pretty firm on that that's not a switch that can be done without a comment, without compensating us.
Yeah. Chris was very firm about that, and then I responded in an email that said pretty much exactly what you just said, Len.
Great.
I mean, it does seem like there would be benefits to not having to argue with them about it,
Yeah, for sure.
right? Like on both sides.
Well, but I mean, I think that they're, okay, I'm going to be devil's advocate that I think they are bringing up points that are good, that we should be decreasing costs and things, and they are hopefully helping work towards a better solution for the town. I'm not sure I agree with their methodology, but I agree with the idea of the concepts they are bringing up. So, okay, so bottom line is we need to make it clear that whatever we present on Friday does not include any change in how much of devices we are capturing.
Yeah,
Okay, so one bucket or two or both.
I think I want one.
What's that? You want one?
I think I want one.
Okay. Uh, Laura, what do you think?
Great.
One bucket or two or both?
I mean, we're talking about the same, coming up with the mathing. So this is like, my perspective on this is different from Liz's, because I'm thinking about like the what sort of seems like this desire to have a lower number. Like I think the part of the reason I like the two buckets is that we can, the selling that we're going down to 4 feels like, even if the math is all the same, to me it feels like it's politically getting us where we need to, like getting us where people want us to go. Like if we're really talking about not different numbers of what we're able to use to serve our kids, that just seems like an ask that is going to be received better. I'm the newest person here, have had the fewest number of conversations, but that's just from my short time listening to these conversations. That's my gut feeling. I'm not, I don't know.
I don't
Okay.
disagree with that either.
Yeah. Len, one bucket or two or both?
Yeah, so I mean, at this point, I lean towards one bucket. I think, at one point, we did have 4% before. The very original long range plan was 4% for everybody. Then it went down to 3.5%, and that wasn't going to be enough. So we argued to split out special education, because that was a documented area where 3.5% was just not going to be enough. But at the time, we could have just said, schools are different. 3.5% is not going to be enough because of special education, because of our salary scale, because of this. This is why schools need a different number. And so now we are going down to one, either one or two categories. We still have a different number, for regular ed. We've had a different number for regular ed than the town. So we're already saying schools are more expensive than town services for whatever reason. And I think we can enumerate those reasons in these conversations that we have with finance committee and with town meeting and with the select board and the long range planning committee, that we can have with them, that doesn't really need to go to the whole entire town and the whole public in the override. I get a little bit concerned about singling out, when it was bad enough that we singled out special education. I think it's
Yeah.
worse when you single out, the out of district families that way. And yes, it's the same as Minuteman, but Minuteman's a choice. It's sort of different.
Okay. I totally agree with that.
I guess for me, like I see what you're saying there, like that, I get that. But I guess where I come back to is like and maybe this is just me knowing what I know, and I'm not looking to punish out of district families. Like objectively speaking, that is more expensive. Like it makes sense to me that that number has to be higher, right? And it also feels easier to say, and that like that's the reality of the world. We don't control that. We have to provide a free and accessible public education to our students, and we have to pay for it. And so in terms of like people having a view of our, fiscal stewardship of the Arlington Public Schools and doing the best that we can to give the best services while being fiscally responsible, like that's where my head is living. I think I can go. This is not a hill I am gonna die on either way. I'm just thinking about how to talk about it. When we're saying the numbers are the same.
I had forgotten, I've been living in spreadsheets for a few days. I had forgotten one of the things that had been compelling to me about one bucket last week was the fact that ties to what Lynn had said. My experience with the two has been that when you have the two and when it's built into the long range plan, that when we go to finance committee, one of the things that happens is that we get asked a whole lot of questions about how we're spending on both lines. And and that's been difficult in that some of our strategy around how do we make sure that we're sustainable over time has been around making sure that we have all of the resources for all of the kids. And so that line is very fuzzy between special ed and gen ed. And the more inclusive you are, the fuzzier it gets, because if you have two educators in the room, they're all serving all of the kids. You shouldn't, and they're there for a specific need that is articulated in an IEP. So where's that overlap? In this case, it's cleaner. However, we will get asked questions about it. And those questions run the risk of singling out in the way that Len is articulating. And I don't want to not be able, essentially, to answer questions of finance committee's posing. And I don't want it
Because
to
it
be
gets
about
too
one kid.
granular
Yeah,
about
yes, yeah.
yeah.
I don't want it to be about the couple of kids that we had to send to this placement and it was that much more expensive. Like, it shouldn't matter.
Right.
It shouldn't matter. And so I think that leans me back towards one. And I think you're right, Laura, that it's compelling in that it politically makes sense. And we can also talk about how we budget it with that breakout and plan for it with that breakout in mind too. And maybe we capture that in our budget book and we capture that in how we present it so that people can see that cost over time. Because that also builds an argument, if we need it down the road, for us to shift
Right.
what that bottom line percent is.
So either of these methods, one bucket or two, I think implicitly implies that we are going to be holding our funding holding what we expect to pay constant, and then banking or pulling from bank excesses or underages.
You're talking about the out of district.
I'm talking about the out of district, sorry. Because otherwise,
Yeah,
we're going to have years when we do not have enough money.
Right.
hold still steady.
And so I think in terms of costs, I mean, in terms of the questions and stuff, part of the reason there's been lots of questions is that it's been about special ed in general. It's not been just out of district. And I agree, I don't like having it be about the placements and things, but I think we shut that stuff down with these, these kids were placed where it was educationally appropriate for them. And that we just keep saying that, they say, but couldn't you use something cheaper? These kids were placed where it was educationally appropriate. Whereas before, I think some people had the sense that, I mean, they were trying to make lines match. And we were doing things, like you said, like building programs and stuff. And so that money wasn't necessarily always in the same line. Whereas in this case, we will need to be very consistent with our line. So to me, the question part isn't going to be, I don't see that being a big deal. And either way, we need to be doing the same thing.
So the money
yeah.
in a low out of district cost year, we
think,
encumber that money for when we need it.
right,
for-
we
put
put
it
it
in-
we put in the reserve,
Okay.
and we can, it's difficult to model what the amount of the highest amount of the reserve needs to be, because when I look backwards, I mean, when I try and model in past years, it's affected by the decrease in enrollment. But actually, maybe we can norm it by number of students and just do it steady on that or something. But anyway, that the exact number, the exact high number for the reserve, I don't know right now, but I think we can come up with something. So for me, okay, I think they'll be happier if we go in and say 2 buckets. I think I personally prefer 1 bucket. So we could go in and present 1 bucket and see where it goes. And if it,
And have we talked, I mean, is the number the 8% or the 6%, like based on
well,
the 8 or the 6%?
that's the next question is then what is the number for the 1 bucket? And I'm thinking it should be the 427 or 425. And go from there. And what we have to make clear is that the internal staffing is 4, and we can't drop from that. And that any twiddling they're doing with the amount above 4 is actually affecting how much we would have for out of district. Does that make sense?
Well, it's the other way around because you can't twiddle without our district either. So it would hit our staffing. Any reduction below 425 would
right.
require a staffing reduction.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, that's better. Okay. Or would potentially,
Right.
I don't think we want to say will, but
Yes.
definitely potentially create a need to reduce staffing and therefore service.
Right.
Okay, and so 1 bucket, 427,
425.
425. Okay, so that's a decrease. That's less than 8% expected for out of district, but it's more than 5.9. So, okay, so 425.
Yep, and
I
does not.
just gotta plug in my computer. Hold on a sec.
Yep.
I mean, continue, but I'm gonna be off for a sec.
Okay. So 1 bucket, 425.
No device promises.
No device promises. And I had something else I wanted to say, and now I forget what it was. Darn.
And we will do an internal calculation around use of sped reserve
Yeah,
and turn back to sped reserve from
Right.
whatever we're allocating for the district,
right,
if it's a light year.
right. And
And I think that is important to say because
yeah,
there's often an assumption that it'll be turned back
yeah.
of whatever's left.
Well, we will be internally calculating anticipated sped needs and rolling excess into the sped reserve. And that we're assuming flat or decreased growth, enrollment growth, I mean. But we don't anticipate numbers to a point in this 3 years where it would make sense to significantly decrease our funding.
What if we do have a significant drop off?
Well, then
I
they
would be-
can reopen discussion,
Yeah.
right? We'll see. Or maybe we turn money back to the town. When were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's most likely not going to be until FY29.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
you know, we've typically done it the year later. So once, you know, October of 28 comes around, you know, we could affect the next the FY30 budget, but that's not part of this 3-year plan. So
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is that it's not going to happen within this 3 years. But that we will consider that in the future. I still think there was something else, but I don't remember what it was. Okay, so we have a plan.
Yeah.
Do we want to make a proposal sheet?
Probably.
I mean, something that we're giving them, that we propose one bucket, 4.25. Sped will be captured
And
within, and we'll be utilizing a reserve to cover overages year to year changes. And we should say our assumptions below. Do you want, I can work on a sheet and then send it to people to see if I've got it correct. Okay. It'll probably be later, like potentially very late today, but I will do that and get it to you.
also, I can
And
look at some stuff tomorrow morning.
I'm sorry.
I can look at stuff tomorrow morning, so.
Yeah. Okay. So do we feel comfortable with that? And I'm also going to share all the graphs I have again, just in case my Wi-Fi goes funky, although right now it's snowing, but it seems to be doing okay. So
Make sure you use the updated OOD enrollment numbers.
I have to look at, I'm not sure I understand what you're saying about that. I'll look at it and
Chris
contact
can
you.
answer questions about that. You would call.
Yeah, I just don't quite understand. Okay. So it sounds like we're basically ready. Do we need, okay, so we're done with that. So we do have minutes. I'm sorry they got out last moment, but you do have minutes. Does anyone have any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, does anyone want to make a motion?
Move to accept both sets of minutes. I don't have them.
Okay,
second,
okay. All in favor, Ms. Guttleson, yes. Mr. Carden, yes. And me, yes. So that's 3. Okay, any old business, anything else that we haven't talked about yet? New business? Okay.
Cheryl's got her
Cheryl,
hand up.
right, okay, Cheryl, you can speak.
Sorry, it's just a super quick question. You guys referenced a couple times a Friday meeting in regard to this, and I was just curious what meeting that is.
That's a long-range plan meeting. It's an advisory council for the town manager.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay. Um, so, any new business? So do we want to meet next Monday? Right now, that time had worked. There's like Monday, 1:30, I think was working for everyone. I haven't officially put it on the books yet. But I'm wondering if we should, because we've got another long range plan in a couple weeks. So I will post that. And I'm going to post it since I won't know until Friday, I'm going to post it very broad, what we're talking about. So, okay. Any future agenda items? Seeing none. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Uh, all in favor, Ms. Gittleson, Mr.
Yes.
Carden, me also yes. Okay, we're done. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
I